bringing the practice indoors today because it's so slippy outside. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a simple drill that you can implement, not only using the AccuStrike training mat, but also you can implement indoors. So if you've not invested in the AccuStrike training mat, make sure you click the link that I'm going to attach below. Use the code, you receive 10% off all orders. It's going to transform your game. It's going to understand where the club actually strikes the ground. But I'm going to break down kind of basic concept within pitching. One of the biggest faults I've seen within let's say, a vast majority of golfers who are struggling is they do not use the bounce enough. So what I mean by that is they don't use the bounce enough. They use too much of the leading edge, which is the bottom part of the club. What tends to happen is the club digs a little bit too much into the ground and we're in trouble. So we've got kind of an indoor setup here that we've kind of managed to somehow manufacture, so you can hear me correctly. So what we're going to do from here is I had a golfer that came for a lesson a couple of weeks ago and they were struggling using too much of the leading edge. So they had created too much forward shaft lean. The leading edge dug into the ground and they were struggling. They were creating big divots, nice steep divots, not a lot of spin. So what we're going to do from here is when we use this AccuStrike training mat a little bit too steep, then what's going to happen is we're going to take a big divot after impact, and you're going to see that on the training mat itself. So what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to get the club to strike the mat. This is the middle of the mat. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the club to strike the mid, let's say a couple inches behind where the circle is on the middle of the mat. That's getting us to use the bounce properly. It's almost as if we're hitting a bunk shot. The club starts to hit the ground a couple inches before the golf ball. Then we keep the bounce on the club, and the club doesn't. What you tend to find is a lot of golfers who use the bounce, the shaft doesn't move too much forward. But if you use too much of the leading edge, you use the leading edge, the shaft goes forward, and then we're in trouble. And look at the mat, we create a big indentation in the forward mat. So also, this is brilliant. Watch this idea. You don't need a rubber for this. You just use your hand. It's like magic. It's like magic. You just use your hand. But this is a simple drill that you can use. So what we're going to do to help us use the bounce, we need to understand how the right wrist works properly. So one common fault I see within golfers, I've covered it quite extensively over the last few weeks. The right palm, if you think, when we're hitting an iron shot, we want to create more compression. This right palm points down towards the ground, almost in this direction. What we do is we actually want to create a little bit cupping in this lead wrist. So it's almost feeling that we're taking the club back. We create a little bit of a cup. So what I mean by that is we're just adding a little bit more hinge. If we take the club back closed, if you think this lead wrist gets a little bit bowed, a little bit close, but let's put this into practice. So what I want you to do is I want you to feel like underneath, you just fold a bit of jumper that you've got underneath your right arm, put your, it's almost as if your arm's really close to your ribcage. Take your left hand, put it on your right shoulder. And what we're going to try and do from here is we're going to try and hit shots using that drill. So the idea is if we put our left hand on our right shoulder, if we use the bounce properly, what's going to happen is our lower body's going to set up slightly left to start off with. Lower body's going to be a little bit left of where our upper body's in, left hand on right shoulder. And what we're trying to do from there is we're just using the rotation of the body to take the club along for the right. And the idea is, we've talked about this in the past, it's the right palm to kind of point towards the sky. That's the feeling. That's the feeling we kind of want to implement. So we set up to the golf ball, take the club back, we're creating a little bit cupping in this lead wrist. So it's almost this right wrist going up the way a little bit more. That's going to create a little bit more loft, it's going to create a little bit more set. So armpit, nice and close to your let's say your rib cage. Left arm, right shoulder, we're going to take the club back, create a little bit cup in this lead wrist. Left hand on right shoulder, take the club back, we're creating a little bit cup in this lead wrist. And the main objective here is lower body's left, shoulders are just going to match the angle on the lower body. So we're coming through impact, and what's going to happen from there is the rotation of the body is going to take the club along for the journey. We don't want to get to this position where we're dragging the handle. So we want to feel like we're doing is we're rotating the body, keeping the width in our left arm that's across the right shoulder. We're rotating through impact, we're keeping the loft on the club. So take the club back, creating a little bit cup in this lead wrist is going to help us let's say increase a little bit more loft. Left hand across the right shoulder, we're coming into impact, and the idea is we almost want to feel like the butt end of the club is working back towards our body. So that's good. If we create too much forward shaft, we create a big gap in our body and the top of the club. So the idea is we rotate our body, the club stays nice and close to our body, the rotation. So as my hips start to open, or my upper body starts to open, the club It's almost nice and close to my left hip. We don't want to get in a position where we're dragging this club too much this way, so setting the club, creating a bit more loft. As we come into impact, we want to feel like we're using the bounce, so we're getting the club to hit the ground 2 or 3 inches, let's say behind the golf ball, that's the feeling to use the bounce. And then the rotation of the body is going to allow the club to come through into impact. And as we're coming through, we're getting right palm, so right palm of the club to point towards the sky, almost in that action. Right palm to the sky, butt end of the club close to your body. So guys, there's a simple drill that you can use indoors. What we want to do is understand what type of fault that we've got, and that fault is we're dragging too much the handle, we're using too much leading edge. What we need to do is we need to learn how to use the bounce more. Use the AccuStrike training mat for feedback. It gives you instantaneous feedback where the club strikes the ground. What you do, feel like your arm's nice and close to your rib cage, across your right shoulder, and we're just using the rotation of body, and we're keeping the width in that left arm on our right shoulder. We're keeping the width, we're keeping the loft on the club, and think of that analogy. Right palm to the sky, right palm to the sky. That's going to develop the sensation of using the bounce. If you use the bounce, how much more spin can we create, how much more cleaner contact the club has with the ground, and that's going to instantaneously help you improve your pitching. Don't use the leading edge too much, that's good for the chip shot. We want to use the bounce more when we're hitting a pitch shot. It's going to help you stop the ball close to the hole, beat your mates, and improve your golf instantly.